BlockDAG closed its presale, saying the final allocation was sold. The supply counter went to 0 on February 16th. That moment creates a very specific psychological effect. It's done. Scarcity completed. No more cheap tokens. That's how presales are supposed to work. A cap is a cap. When it hits 0, it should mean 0. But then another 100 million coins suddenly appeared. That is not a small adjustment. That is not a rounding error. That is a major supply decision. And when something like that happens right after a final allocation narrative, it damages credibility instantly. In crypto, supply is supposed to be transparent and predictable. If a project claims allocation is fixed and then extends it after selling out, one of two things is true. Either the supply was never truly fixed, or the messaging was misleading. There is no third option. If the allocation was locked in smart contract code, it cannot magically increase unless the developers have minting control or admin override. If they do have that control, then the supply is not trustless. It is centralized. And if it is centralized, investors are relying on team discretion, not immutable code. That's the core issue. People invest in presales because they believe in early scarcity. When scarcity turns out to be flexible, the entire value proposition weakens. It starts looking less like a mathematically enforced blockchain system and more like a fundraising campaign that adjusts based on how much more money can be collected. And let's be real here. Extending supply after a sellout often signals one thing. They wanted to raise more capital. Maybe demand slowed. Maybe funding targets weren't fully met. Maybe they realized they could extract more liquidity from retail investors before listing. Whatever the reason, it is not a confidence-building move. In serious crypto projects, tokenomics are clearly defined from day one. Total supply is fixed. Presale allocation percentage is fixed. Vesting schedules are published. If anything changes, there is an official proposal or at least a detailed explanation. Sudden expansion, without strong transparency, creates doubt. Now, does this automatically mean scam? Not necessarily. But it absolutely means central control exists. And central control combined with marketing-driven scarcity is dangerous. Because here's the bigger concern. If 100 million coins can appear once, what prevents it from happening again? If supply isn't strictly enforced on-chain, future dilution is always possible. That means long-term investors carry uncertainty risk. Another uncomfortable truth. Final round marketing is one of the strongest pressure tactics in crypto. It pushes FOMO. It pushes last-minute buyers. When that urgency turns out to be extendable, it feels manipulative, even if technically allowed. Trust in crypto is fragile. Once supply credibility is questioned, price stability becomes fragile too. Investors begin to think, if they changed this, what else can change? A blockchain project should operate on mathematical certainty, not adjustable sales strategy. Code is supposed to remove human manipulation. If humans can override supply numbers, then decentralization becomes a marketing word rather than reality. The worst part isn't even the extra 100 million coins. It's the timing. Letting allocation hit 0 creates climax. Then reopening supply resets the fundraising cycle. That sequence looks intentional, not accidental. If they truly had more tokens planned for release, that should have been disclosed clearly before the sellout moment. Transparency beforehand prevents suspicion afterward. Right now, from an outside logical perspective, it does not look good. It looks like supply flexibility being used strategically, and strategic supply changes during presale rarely favor early buyers. Investors should now ask very specific questions. Is total maximum supply permanently capped? Can developers mint more tokens? Is contract ownership renounced? Is there documentation proving no further increases can occur? If those answers are unclear, risk increases. In crypto, you don't trust promises, you verify code. And when supply behavior contradicts scarcity messaging, skepticism is not negativity. It's rational thinking. At minimum, this move shows centralization. At worst, it shows opportunistic fundraising behavior. Either way, it weakens confidence. If a project wants to be taken seriously long-term, supply integrity must be unquestionable. Once doubt enters tokenomics, it's very hard to remove. That's the honest take.